Thank you, Mr. Lynch, for leading the meeting last time.
No problem. Thank you
Everybody
for the honor of
told
doing
me they
that.
would rather have you.
That's not
we
good.
elect new officers.
Probably it was supposed to be at this meeting after April 3rd.
Next month.
Are you
Oh,
telling
so-
everyone that your
this is
dad
it.
is coming out?
Should we do it this meeting? It's up to you. We'll wait till next week. Would you put that on the agenda? All in order? Anyway. Discussion and action on the minutes from the last meeting, which you all should have a copy of.
Motion to approve the next printing.
I have them. Second. Stephanie. Old person. Second? For you, right there with the hand up? Yeah. Ruth, second.
Yeah.
Any discussion on the last meeting on the minutes? All in favor? We're good. Discussion, new business, we have discussion and action on the review and update of the facade improvement program. Our fearless town manager sent an initial request to the TIF committee. Could you explain it briefly?
Sure. The last meeting, you approved two facade applications. The first was to, Crooked Face Greenery. The second was to Bickford Properties, which was, proposed 4-unit property here to Main Street. The select board ultimately approved the recommendation by a vote of 3-2. And the move of that large move was related to, is it commercial? If it is, the program considered commercial and things like that. So there was a call for clarity, so the select board shut your program down. We're not taking any applications, and they've asked that you folks consider providing clarity to it.
And thank
Clarity,
you.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Clarity to, the part of commercial and not commercial, so that's why.
Correct.
Okay.
So there were three people who I see commented on it. The first one was the initial thoughts of the apartment building should be considered commercial since it generates income. Second one was a quote that says that on a legal and zoning standpoint, an apartment can either be commercial or residential. The differentiation there was 4 units of rentable property. And the third one was I've had a hard time agreeing with the apartment should be along the same line as a business company. So.
I think one comment I was thinking about, which kind of goes to that email that Kelsey had sent for us to look at, is like we had said, a unit of 4 or more is considered commercial if they don't live in it. But my only wonder about clarifying is like, okay, if we approve this, then what about, like, for instance, somebody buys that blue house on Main Street? Does that mean that we approve for them to get a new roof on that house? I guess, like, what end do we stop at once we approve something like this?
So I guess that's the discussion. So did everybody got this letter too? I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. So basically this letter says, if I may paraphrase, what's the thought about moving a 5-year downtown residential and commercial facade improvement program, which would address many of the properties in the downtown area? So that we'll just throw that in there as part of our, in the back of our mind while we're making this discussion. It's an option.
Yeah, cause that was my thought, is like, if we go with her, cause that's a good idea, like a 5-year downtown residential commercial facade. So if we go with that, then are we gonna put all apartments into that while we have it? But we still would need to make a decision, I think, on how we stand with what we approve for apartment based compared to residential based.
Any thoughts?
So that would go from the corner up here to Everett's, basically.
Are you talking about the
I think
new?
that's-
If it's going to be just the downtown area.
Well, let's not talk about that yet.
Okay.
Because let's make a policy first, and then this can be a different issue. This can be a different situation. Because I think the selectmen want clarity, so let's give them clarity first. So let's talk
Before
about
we
clear.
start, before we actually get into it, in Robbie's letter, which I did not bring with me, he said it's a 3-unit. In his letter that when he wrote it up,
The 2 Main Street is a 3-unit.
the corner property that they applied for.
Okay. It's 2
Yeah,
Main
it is
Street.
2 Main,
Is that-
yeah,
It's the left one.
It's-
slide.
yeah,
Um,
that's,
Oh, the one where the dog used to go. Right. Okay. Max.
Is that the reason?
that's
I think
what
it's on
his
back.
letter had said, his application, and I neglected to bring it with me, but I
Well,
questioned
that's
that.
water over the dam because that's already been approved. So that's all set. We just need, for moving on for the selectmen's purpose, and I think it's
Okay.
fair that we should, our current eligibility for buildings and properties says that these buildings which are within the town of Norridgewock, so there's no geographical, it's all the town, contain commercial business. A commercial, mixed use structures may be eligible. At the discretion of the select board, but must be programmed and clearly demonstrate the potential economic impact. Residential structures are not allowed. That's our current eligibility. Go ahead.
It's a lot, right? So I don't know if you want me to just give my
Yeah,
opinion,
go for it.
or maybe say the things I struggle with. So when I look at our general, I'd say our core value, like our top 4. I feel like there's a lot of conflict between increasing the economic vitality, enhancing the commercial property located within the town of Norridgewock. I see that as like anywhere in the freaking town. But then to restore and preserve the character of Norridgewock, I really think that's maybe even limited to a smaller, like the downtown. And I guess my feeling is, geez, I think this is the main thoroughfare. Anyone wants to fix up any building on that stretch, like, let's give them some money.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I guess, where the select board wants us to go, where we wanna go, but I guess I'm conflicted with, I think we should give money to any commercial building regardless, but also there's definitely a downtown, and if we're truly trying to restore that, there's honestly not a whole lot of commercial left,
No,
No, we really don't.
so,
And Scotty Henderson's got a 2-unit there,
right,
and they are, I don't know how many units are across the street in that one,
yeah, I don't either, but.
that's 4.
But again, even, I think there's some single family residential, like, let's dress them up too, I don't, but I don't think that's, again, I don't know if that's within what we're
That's a
trying.
secondary task tonight.
Fair enough.
First task will be to, as the selectmen requested, let's redo our, if we want to change our eligibility, the way it's phrased. Because I guess we have to define commercial. So I went to the internet, what is a commercial building?
I found what you can look at 4 units.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that seems to be pretty standard, a 4-unit.
uh-huh,
And you can't argue with that.
Yeah.
I mean, however, why not?
By assessing standards in the state of Maine code, it's 5.
oh,
So,
oh, yes,
I did read it. Everything I
Yeah.
found, that's what I found was everything from.
but 4 is still considered residential then.
By most Maine standards. We're not, from a tax perspective, if you have 4 units, that's residential. From an assessing perspective.
Okay, and I think we should stay with that. So I think it's only good to have something behind us to say, why did you make that decision? And you're saying the tax code says that 4 or 5.
5.
Okay, so I think that's a fair place. I mean, now we
think-
don't have to go back and take away his money, right?
This is not about retroactive, this is about providing clarity in this program. If we want different programs, start exploring that, then build the program.
Okay.
I was gonna say, cause what I agree with what he said is like, I feel like the tax code with the 5 or more maybe is more for like the wider range, like we said, but then. Like what he just said, I mean, on downtown, we want it to look as good as possible, so would it hurt to help residential, but then again. You don't wanna go outside of that, and that's where I feel like you open the can of worms, but like he
Yeah.
said, if they're on like this strip, let's do what we can to help them, but. Have this as a stipulation once you go out of the range that we pick.
Well, this would be a whole new program.
Right,
Right,
Yeah,
so
so
for what we have right now for this program, five,
five
we're
or more.
comfortable with
is
that.
that a motion?
I make a motion.
I
to-
second.
Yeah.
And I have a second. Do we have discussion on changing the wording on our eligibility to any commercial how is it phrased? Apartments are a commercial property as long as there is a rental income to the owner of at least 5 units.
And should we also stipulate that the owner doesn't live in that?
I
Well,
think
that is the
applies.
stipulation.
But I think it's implied because
It is
that would not be a
implied.
rental. You see what I'm saying? If there are 5 units, but one's not being rented, there's only 4 units that are being rented. Does that make sense?
I don't know that we can
There's
assume.
5 units
Yeah.
available to be, they're there.
I think you have
So
to.
I
is
think
there,
you
I mean,
have
let's go
to
back to
be-
the code or assessing, is there any criteria that says it can't be owner occupied or?
No, and devil's advocate, because it's not gonna ever be a clean cut. What if an LLC holds the ownership of the building and then the individual comes in and just pays the LLC to rent it?
Right.
Which is what would more than likely happen, right? I mean,
Right.
yeah,
Or could be the other way around, maybe you're gonna have your LLC rent for you individually.
So main code must be different too, because what I found online with the 4 or more was that they couldn't occupy it or it wouldn't be commercial.
All I know is about the taxes.
you really care who lives there, can we just say 5 and?
Yeah.
Yeah, I say 5.
Yeah, 5.
Right. And any discussion, could you read the change in the,
So right now, related to this, a structure with multiple housing units shall be considered eligible if it is located within the downtown, which is a different discussion. And there is rental income to the owner from at least 5 units.
yes,
Okay.
so what's
You
in
would
downtown?
Well, right, so that's where the map came in. Do you want to just leave that without restriction? That came up in your pre-meeting, in your emails, where somebody said it should be focused on the downtown.
And I think I brought that up and I was just looking for a definition, I think.
And I
Well-
was trying to provide something in advance, so that it's easier to kick it out than it is to build it right here.
And the initial facade program was for the downtown area initially
No,
to.
No, it never was.
To-
No,
It
because
was
we've done,
prioritized to the downtown,
I was
Okay.
gonna say no,
but we've never had a flood out.
because
Right,
we've
I know.
done that, we've done Amy's and that's not downtown at all.
Oh, last.
Oh, no, I know, we
We-
expanded it,
Right.
but
So, I mean,
initially,
you have a motion in a second, but I think we probably should hammer out
Yeah,
some of these. So do you want to restrict it to being located in the downtown
no,
in a certain geography?
no, it should be like it's said here, well, that's my opinion. It says, the property shall mean those buildings which are within the town of Norridgewock is how it's currently worded. I say we just keep it that way. And then define in that eligibility, a commercial property is 5 units.
So if you have a 5-unit apartment building out on Barbell Hill Road,
Yeah.
you don't care.
No.
You don't want to put a geographic restriction on that.
If we stay within the map that's here.
No map,
That's
we're
not-
throwing the map away.
They're saying no,
Map
Not
Okay.
yet, no, not yet, what we're talking about there.
Well, that's not.
No.
Oh, yes, no, we're throwing that away.
Okay.
Is that the consensus or is that not the consensus?
so that would include like the senior housing on 201 going. Scheduled, and then anything within the
Yeah.
confines of the town.
and I mean, at the end of the day, we approve or deny it anyhow, like, that's just the stipulations on what they apply, so.
And again, there's always wiggle room. We only make, yeah, the selectmen are asking for clarity. So I think if we clarify and use numbers 5 units, then we've clarified the definition of commercial for apartments.
Okay, so I'm gonna read this section, this is gonna read, eligible buildings / property shall mean those buildings which are within the town of Norridgewock and contain at least one operation or commercial business. So this is new, Said operational businesses must declare personal property annually with the town. Mixed-use structures may be eligible at the discretion of the select board, but must clearly demonstrate the potential economic impact. Residential structures are not allowed. A structure with multiple housing units shall be considered eligible if there is rental income to the owner from at least 5 units, or it is a building with active operational retail space and housing units in any number.
Any housing units.
And then
It was, in your language that you proposed before the meeting, you had said it didn't, in your mind, it didn't matter if there was one, as long as there was retail, active retail
Right.
in this
That's right,
space.
that would make sense. Yeah.
There's already retail, so it could be one
Okay.
above or two.
So that would then make it eligible, just.
That's right,
same thing
because
as
that's
everything.
right, I'm sorry.
So that's what that section would read.
Okay,
We pulled out downtown, we changed 4 to 5.
Yeah.
Or we added that rather.
Yeah.
All that new language.
any more discussion? Before we vote on what he just read, John, you look like you're,
just, so just to clarify, so let's go back to the Bickford property, it's a 4-unit. If he rents out 1 unit to a law firm, does that then meet the new criteria?
Operational retail space.
Retail, okay, would have to be retail, gotcha.
And I put that language because one of the main goals is to drive foot traffic.
Yep, gotcha.
So I, we appreciate that kind of business, but
Mhm.
some people need to make sure
Sounds good.
necessarily.
okay. Discussion. All in favor of the new wordage? Opposed? It carries. Thank you, everybody. It's getting wicked, but that's okay. I mean, that's part of the fun of this, why we get paid so much.
So can we keep going through this? So,
Yeah, we're going to.
okay, a year and a half or 2 ago, we started revising and we got caught up. And I think it would benefit.
Go through all the red.
Continue the rest. Yeah.
Okay, and how do you want to proceed with that?
Back, same document, page 3.
Yeah.
Just talks about the annual funding now. Norridgewock said their guidelines, so guess what? All their guidelines, rules are made to be broken, right? You know what you said? But I think
Not
it's
what I
best,
said.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that,
Isn't it intent, what I said?
but I think the best we could do is to align this with the general goal of what you do on the regular, where you want to see it. So on page 3, F is annual funding. Right now, it's not to exceed 20% of the total annual revenue. We're at about $120,000 a year in annual revenue. So that puts you over your limit already. So that at a previous meeting, and I say a year and a half or 2 ago probably, it was thought you could bring it up to 50%. It still leaves you pretty low, but
Can I have an example of what you're saying?
so we have $100,000 that came into the TIF last year.
Okay,
That means up to 50% can be allocated to the facade program
okay,
by guideline. In reality, we got about $120,000 last year, so that leaves you $60,000 that you can allocate. And if that's what you do, then you've done up to about $23,000, I think, maybe to row bottoms. And you've done 25 to Bickford, so you only got 15 left,
for the whole year.
right?
For fiscal.
So what's our fiscal year?
For
June.
calendar year,
We are.
we're January 1 to December 31.
So,
But the money doesn't come in until August, which is why I added during the previous calendar year. So we'd be looking at last year's revenues to know what we were looking at, because we don't know the tax commitment, how much you're actually gonna get in.
so what row bottoms was last year, the hair salon in Bickford was this year?
Hair salon is not, hair salon was last year,
Okay,
Elevate,
yes,
okay? That's on the Water Road, then Row Bottoms is this year. Bickford's is this year.
The cheese,
was after the hair salon.
that was last meeting.
Last meeting.
Right,
Oh, sorry, I'm
You're
sorry,
thinking
robot
farm.
farm, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
I'm
why
sorry,
technically in that one.
I got you.
Yes.
I
See where you're.
My fault.
Creamery.
Sorry, yes,
I was
You
thinking,
led the meeting.
I'm sorry.
I was thinking, I know what you said,
So
there's
that's-
twice.
For the sake of numbers, it's 45,000 already.
of
Yeah.
last year, half of last year's TIF increment, is that correct? And you're saying last year's TIF increment was 60,000,
Which was about 120.
So half that is 60, 45, 15.
So then.
So, what are you asking for on
Well,
page
right
three?
now it
number
says
10?
20. It says 20% is the maximum.
Where are you?
F,
Page three,
Yeah.
F,
The
Line
red.
2, page 3, it says
yeah.
should not exceed, and 20 is crossed out, and it proposes 50.
Oh, I see, 20's crossed out, I see.
This is where we left off.
Okay,
What I did add since the last meeting is that last during the previous calendar year.
I make a motion to approve F as printed in red.
second that, any discussion?
Yeah,
John, you're looking funny again.
Go ahead, Ruth, yeah.
sorry, you go ahead first.
So what would be the other programs that the money would go to? I mean, is this? Like, if we're only spending 50% in this, are we intending to spend somewhere else, or do we need to spend it somewhere else, and then? Or are we trying to accumulate?
So you have larger projects that are available to be used.
Mhm.
One of them is the sidewalks. Right, we've got sidewalk reconstruction, that's probably gonna pull 550,000 out of the TIF, if everything goes well, but it's not, because the TIF's probably not gonna have that much money in it.
Okay.
So we've been riding with $500,000. It comes in, it goes out, it comes in, it goes out, but we haven't done anything, I'll say substantive and no disrespect intended, but really since the fire station. And the sidewalk upgrade is one of those things that is enumerated in there, sidewalk expansion.
Mhm.
And reconstruction. So that'll take $500,000, that'll deplete it.
So what you're saying then, what you're asking is what other projects could, an example of another project that we might have funded that now that we don't have the money. So in other words, someone comes and says a new flags for the thing. And they say, Tiffany, can you buy new flags to enhance the downtown? We would have to say no, because we don't got no money. Is that correct? Okay, so that's.
Well,
Yeah.
That was kind of what I was thinking, maybe we should make a little bit less available than the 50%, and that way, if we happen to get a flood of applicants or.
But I think we wanna think about it too, is like, this is our funding, so it's not just right now when we're going through the sidewalk, this is all the time too, so.
And another thing to consider, if this is even something that we're thinking about doing, putting 50% of our revenue in the facade program, this current facade program would virtually eliminate this new one of providing funding for the downtown from the light down.
That makes sense, I just worry where he just said we've already approved two and we could
We're
approve
there.
one more for the whole rest of the year. And actually technically not if we don't change this.
Well, right, I mean, it's a guideline, so that's the guide you're trying to take, I know you've got 2 or 3 applications that are waiting outside the door.
Right.
Okay? Once a Main Street business.
But with what you're saying is if we don't change this, technically, we've already gone over already, so we wouldn't be approving any more for the rest of the year and it's.
I mean, it's not that it's hard and fast, it's best that you try to make this align as close to what you think the reality is gonna be. If you go to 56. Whatever, if you go
Yeah.
to 60 or 75, as long as you justify it.
Right.
Amongst yourselves and you have the support, but I think that it's something you wanna keep your eye on, at 20%, it's, you're not keeping your eye on it.
And right now we're over.
I don't know. 50% is a big chunk of the money that we have available every year.
I think we went through such a lull of not having any facade, so everyone was like, oh, money's just sitting there, but now it's thankfully being.
Yeah. A question further on my duty. We reduced, was 20, talked about 50. If we went down to 30 or 40, would we then change the ceiling of a possible award? In other words, instead of saying 25,000 is what we'll do, would we say 15,000, you see what I'm saying, that would allow more.
I think you'd have to do that if you don't do the 50.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think if you don't do the 50, then you'd have to do that, so then we could give out more, cause technically, if you don't do the 50 right now, then we'd approve no more for the rest of the year, so, which is what we don't wanna do.
I'm only thinking of it as a numbers, in other words, yeah, if I was a business and I was downtown, I knew I could get 12 grand. You know, apply for 25, and get 12 grand as an award, that's pretty, you know, I mean, that's good use of your money.
Yeah, it's still a lot.
It's a substantial savings for them.
If you moved that bar, it's, but if you could move this to 50 and just move your project bar.
Mhm.
That.
Oh, I see what you're
You
saying.
have the potential to invest.
Yeah.
It actually encourages more people to apply, I would think.
They just wouldn't have the award that they might have a year ago.
Right.
Just a thought, I don't know.
I like that.
No, I like
Yeah,
that,
that's a good idea.
You're still encouraging investment, but you're kind of betting on,
more instead of 2,
Yeah.
you could get 5.
I know several people who have got it in the past and they were very, very happy. I mean, it just really helped their business.
Sure.
You know, then people abused it, but I mean, who got it? Well, business, but I think we should. Anyway, so let's talk about the 50. Do we want to stay at 50?
I think we proposed to move it to 50 and lower the scale that we have.
Reward, yeah.
So any more discussion? So we're just talking about the 50 for now. All in favor of moving it to 50? Okay, no, okay, unanimous. During the previous calendar year,
I motion to approve.
okay?
can we talk about what affects that from calendar year to calendar year?
State valuation, our percent to actual, so when you see your homestead,
And it's of the actual pipeline, like the valuation of what that
yes,
is worth.
yeah, so.
Okay.
So we have a
Before I got here, the county negotiated the value of that pipeline.
Okay,
The value of the pipeline is constant. That
okay,
worked in your favor sometimes, but as everything gets more expensive, the value of everything goes up, the pipeline doesn't.
okay,
That's why you're seeing the decrease every year.
okay. So we can anticipate a decrease year over year as long as we don't have deflation or something like
Yeah.
We have a second, we have a first and a second, and any more discussion? So we're gonna keep it so that the money that the 50% will be from the previous year's income of the TIF allocations, that's correct. All in favor? All right. G, waiver of requirement, you wanna talk about that?
This was a stale note in the file where, and I don't even know what brought it up, but that somebody could receive a waiver, but it had to be documented in writing.
A waiver.
And I don't know what the root of it was, I can't remember.
A waiver, what's an example, I guess, of a waiver of requirement?
I have 5 unit, I have a 4 unit apartment and it says 5, I'd like you to waive that.
Gotcha.
I don't know.
And it says may request, is all you can say.
Right, I don't know what the root of it is,
Yeah.
but
I mean, they can request anything they want.
I was just gonna say, they can
Right.
request anything they want, and we can go over it, but
Yeah,
this
the
is
point of
just
this is,
process of that, I guess.
I guess that's fair,
Yeah,
it's fair.
Mhm.
because it's still up to us, yeah.
Yeah.
Still up to us.
Yeah, okay.
So you want a motion to accept the G?
Second,
Okay. Yep, all in favor? Oops, no.
I think this is where we can talk about the
Yeah.
thresholds.
amount.
Yeah, four A. The amount of the grant shall be, last sentence, the amount of the grant should be a minimum of $1,500 and not to exceed $25. 25, not to exceed 25,000 per single property, i.e. between 3,000 and 50,000, huh? 25,000.
So that's what you were just saying, we wanted to change.
Oh, I always thought it was half of 25,000, oh, my bad. All right, what is your pleasure?
So then what is this part where it says total facade project cost? Okay, so that's when they give us the quote, it'd be between 3 and 50,
That's of a minimum of 3,000.
because we're offering half of that. So if we wanted to fix that, then we're saying 1,500 to 15,000. So then it'd be 3,000 to 25,000.
We could
Is that what
say,
we're all talking about?
For 30,000, right? 3,000.
so if someone got an award of 25,000, their total amount that we would pay out would be 12,500.
Right.
So if we got 100,000, if we got 50% of $100,000, we can do 3 or 4 as opposed to 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Look, you're looking at me funny. Funny mass?
I'm gonna, once you're done talking, I'm gonna ask what you want that top number to be.
So, do you have any, I mean, I don't think we've, like, most projects exceed 50,000, is that fair? Or is that inaccurate? Trying to get a sense on where,
Most projects that we've seen do.
yeah,
Because they're usually substantial,
Renovation.
right, you're not just
Construction.
replacing the siding or something.
Somebody could come to us with something that's 60,000, we still would only go up to the, if we do.
That's what I'm
the
saying.
25,
They can
right?
come with us
Yeah.
and say it's
Yeah.
$100,000 and
Really
we'll
bad
do
project,
up
but
to
we'll do
this.
Up to
If
25,000.
the program goes, if you gain popularity, but then you finally get people applying, number one, I would think maybe you consider lowering that bottom number just a bit.
Yeah,
Why not encourage somebody to put a new sign up?
for $1,000,
Yeah.
and
Even
pay
if that's
$500.
$3,000. But, and maybe it's a sign and some additional landscaping or lighting, I don't know, but you could pull that down and you could get some people involved that way, but. If people are coming, are you gonna start paying for everybody's windows? No, your windows look fine, yeah, they look better, but if windows aren't unattractive, then why would we pay for windows? And when you start looking at adjusting and maximizing. I think those are the things that you guys will start to consider.
Is there a reason why when we say on this 3,000 to 50,000, how we just said people can come to us with anything? So is there a reason that we have to put a max on that part? But really just focus on the minimum that we're able to contribute, or we have to have the.
Not sure what you're asking.
I guess like, I don't want to discourage people if they're doing $100,000 project to come in. And we're saying like, okay, these are our limits, but we can still offer them. The basis, so if you come in and have $100,000 project, we're only able to not to exceed, say this says $15,000. But we can still be willing to give them the $15,000, even if they exceed the 50,000.
So just pull out that parenthesis.
That, yeah, I mean. I don't want someone to not just because they're going higher, I guess, or is that where you get worried they don't finish the project, I guess.
I see what you're saying.
And that's when we then we write in for some sort of,
Right, for that other,
right,
yeah.
for the other part.
just throwing this out here. And I guess another option to encourage more investment would be to do a lower percentage, so we're at 50 now, if we went to 25% investment, or we'd recoup, or we'd pay for 25% instead of 50%. That kind of puts more on that, you know, in theory, they're investing more in the town to get. Less, I don't know if that helps us at all, but
Would you still wanna go up to the 15,000, to 25% of the project? Up until, or?
I hadn't thought it through. I'm just trying to think, you know, what can we, how can we use less dollars to get a bigger return?
I definitely agree with dropping it to like the $1,000 where like they could put in fact, if we're the 500 thing.
I'd like to think like a business owner, like several people we have here. So let's think as a business owner. If I'm a new business and I just opened a PFAF store here on the main street, and I really only need a new sign. The minimum here is only 15, but you're right, that if we knock down the minimum, so it's 750, now they can get a new sign.
And the minimum is 3,000, you're gonna spend $3,000 on a sign.
Right.
Oh, I see.
And get half of the back, the grant's 1,500,
So
so.
if these are aren't these one time? If I buy the sign, can I come back to us and get, oh, you can,
Yeah, the facade.
okay,
Yeah.
We
sorry,
track the property.
okay, sorry.
I should know this, is there a time lapse between the second application and first.
No, it's total life, you can take up to 25,000,
Okay,
is how it's written right now.
thank you.
Which almost, I'd rather someone come and get 500 times
Right.
than make up a whole bill of so much stuff that they maybe don't need at the moment, just to get an approval.
Right,
Yeah.
Would people do that? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know, it's for $500, I wouldn't fill out the
Yeah.
application.
It's a lot of.
You gotta fill out the application, you gotta come here.
Just saying.
Yeah.
So there's no harm in lowering that.
No.
no.
Yeah.
It's available if they need it, if they ask for more.
Okay,
Yeah.
look at this is small.
Yeah. That's another issue. So. I'm not feeling it like we have any consensus. I mean, this is gonna be a vote anyway, but are people thinking we should have the grants, the minimums to $750 and $20 and $1250?
$750 and
I thought we were saying 5.
12,500.
12.5, yeah.
Hmm.
Which would be, they would need to raise $1,500, the construction minimum, $1,500 to $5,000 construction cost.
So you don't wanna lower the 25 at all?
I don't know, I'm just,
Yeah,
I just want some clarity.
I think we lowered both of them,
Well, no, he did, he went from 750,
but you still said 25.
the project cost would be 25,000.
Oh, okay.
Grant would only be
So the
12,000.
50 over here would be
Right.
25, okay. I
So
see.
instead of 15, lower even more to 12,500.
Right.
Okay.
Cut everything in half, basically.
Okay,
Okay.
Well, more to get done by more people.
Right.
Hopefully, yes.
and then do you add in here a clause that we're willing to see projects over that, but still?
I don't know if
Only
you wanna
exceed.
say that. Because they have an opportunity, because they have a waiver over here.
Okay, so that they can use
let
the
them-
waiver for
Let
that.
them be creative. And say,
Okay.
oh, I understand you have a waiver of requirement.
No, that's fair, that's a good idea, yeah.
Let them get their lawyers involved. That's okay.
So with that motion, put that on the table. The
Do
grant,
you want to explore
750 to
the percentage at all
12,500.
anymore?
I don't know, is anyone else feeling the percentage? If not, I'm fine.
That makes things really confusing.
Okay, sounds good.
I say if we lower it, then we don't need to, if we wanted to keep it the same, then we could go that route.
And if there's bigger projects, like you said, like if you have, you're spending 12,500, but that's only 25% of your project, then I think we get into the problem of it being. Our cap will be bigger, right?
Right, so what we're encouraging right now, I believe, is smaller projects.
But more of them.
That's
Right.
correct. Yes, that's right. Yep.
At 50%.
Average.
That make sense? Yes, you wanna read it?
I'm gonna adjust the 1,500 and 25,000 to 750 and 12,500.
You're gonna say 50, not to exceed.
Correct.
And then if you're fixing those, you're fixing the 3,000, 50,000, okay.
Yep, it'll be 15.
Where will the language facade project cost? Is that are we eliminating that part
I'm cutting out cost of construction and changing it to facade project cost.
between 1,500 and 25,000?
Correct.
A motion to approve 750 not to exceed 12,500 and facade projects between 1,500 and 25,000.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
I think we should leave it where it is, but.
B, matching
On the
funds
loan.
1-to-1 are required.
Whatever.
Oh, I'm not
So
far
a
off.
matching requirement of is being eliminated to matching funds of 1-to-1 are required.
I mean, I don't
Just
need to vote on
rewording it.
Something like that.
Huh?
If you're fine with that, I need to
Yeah.
vote on it.
Yeah, no.
Just consensus on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we want to continue for a little while? Everybody okay?
Yep.
Is supper on the stove? Okay.
I think the next substantive change is page 5. Whoa. This is how it was at the last conversation when we hit the brakes, went off the rails. So this was the proposed change, was to remove A and B from the exclusion list.
The following businesses are ineligible Nonprofit, it would read just nonprofit organizations, banks, savings and loan installations, and non-independently owned.
My brain's not working. What's an example of a
Mhm.
non-independently owned establishment?
Or, like a Big Lots or like a commercial,
Gotcha.
not commercial, but you know,
Change.
chain, think of, big box store.
And not nonprofits because they have other ways of getting funds? Is that the thought of why that's on? there?
Nonprofits are excluded from benefiting from TIF funding.
And I would assume that the original language was something we brought from somewhere else.
Yeah.
I remember that when
Yeah.
we first started, that we
Totally need a
incorporated
bill.
it.
There was a Fairfield.
Next to the bar.
All right, so is this something we should vote on?
Were they taking it out because it was like limiting?
I feel like the first one is gonna be
Right.
something that probably is being applied for.
So this was, again, it was 2 years ago, so I think maybe something like that came up out of a previous application where
Gotcha.
we had votes on whether or not to consider something a bar or a restaurant.
Hmm,
Then you start talking about the marijuana and the discussion at the time was it's legal.
Right.
And the town has already restricted what type of marijuana business can be here.
Are these funds, these are town funds, correct? Our
Right,
funds are all town
Right.
funds, not federal
right.
funds.
And then you get in, so we do have a pawn shop, we don't have check cashing or money transfer. We don't have bail bonds, and then furniture and appliance rental shops.
We're gonna open a bail bonds, but we're stopping.
Okay.
hmm.
But then you
Medical.
car lot, I mean, arguably that's a component of some people's businesses.
Right.
And I'm just looking, I didn't realize medical facilities were ineligible at one time.
But
Is that because they're not privately
That's medical
owned?
marijuana.
Oh,
it's,
that
it's in
kind
the
of
same
thing.
sentence,
Okay.
medical, retail and
Medical.
Yeah, okay,
not like the.
right,
Most of the medical
Office,
facilities
right.
that might be eligible anyway,
Or
common
not
medical
really.
are nonprofits.
uh,
Like the Reddington office here, they don't pay taxes. The doctor's office, of Mercy Road,
Mhm.
their taxes out.
I make
Yeah.
a motion to approve removing A and D from 6.
A and D, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Second, seconds it, any discussion, more discussion?
yeah, I think we should leave it.
We've,
You think?
So you don't think a bar or restaurant should be approved?
Oh, we already approved a bar,
Well, I'm not
so we
talking-
eliminated that because we.
It was not. It was not a bar that was approved. This board voted and the select board voted to deem it a restaurant. The
Okay,
purpose of a bar is to go and
Okay.
get drunk.
just, yeah,
If you serve food, then you negate that.
then it negates it, okay. Well,
But not that
I-
that's,
I think it should remain.
I guess the problem I have with adding these in here is these are many like a furniture appliance store. Or a used car lot, I guess, like John had said earlier, like if we're in that downtown space, we wanna
Hmm,
everybody, so if it's
Yeah.
everybody or nobody sometimes.
I think the big thing is that if it's an independently owned establishment, then it's obviously gonna be like somebody
Right,
This is just as a rental shop, so we'd be looking at. Like what the gun is gonna be.
Right,
But
but
an
if-
appliance shop would be a business.
well,
correct?
that's a little different than a. What am I looking at? Appliance rent, a rental is different than a
Right,
appliance store.
Right. I think having the non-independently owned establishment kind of negates a lot, like takes a lot of those.
or like a rent to something.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a first, a second, any more discussion? All in favor of eliminating A and D on number 6, which was opposed? One abstain or
Nay,
what's that?
a nay,
Nay.
yeah.
Would that be it?
That's the last substantive change I have.
I don't want to,
Um,
let's just talk about this. Let's talk about this and then we can talk about it next meeting. So, give me, so the objective of this particular thought from a resident. Kelsey, is it Kelsey? Kelsey Bedford, do you know Kelsey Bedford?
She is, shareholder in Victor Properties,
Okay.
the apartment building you approved last year.
And former select board, right?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay. That may be a 5-year downtown residential and commercial facade improvement program could be considered. So it would be completely different or the same. But the probably eligibility would be the biggest issue and dollars.
I was just gonna say, the biggest thing is residential on here compared to. We
Sure.
don't, I said the biggest difference is residential, that's one thing.
I think so.
So it wouldn't even be, I would say, a 5-year downtown residential and commercial, it'd just be
Change, do a whole.
residential, yeah.
The thing that would be hard is like when you apply for the side of the commercial there, I don't know exactly, but like you can't sell the business, right? You have to like.
Mhm.
In 5 years,
For 5
right,
years.
5 years, so that'd be really hard to control for a resident, right? Like. You force somebody to, you have to live there now for 5 years.
Right.
Or you could pay the money back.
Or
on
pay the money
sale,
back,
Right,
something like that.
on the sale, okay.
right.
And I think that when you go into residential pertaining to this map, you have to get real particular.
Right.
That would
Literally.
have to be narrowed right down.
Right.
To a geographical
A new
dot
map.
from here
Oh,
to here.
right,
Right,
Right.
pretty much, really right through town.
And I thought residential was not allowed with the TIF
so
money.
we're saying we'd start a whole, subsection of it that would allow that.
Would we be allowed to do that
It's
with
one of my
TIF
notes.
money?
It's possible,
It's
it's one
possible.
of my notes. When you talk about slight blight neighborhoods,
Well, yeah,
that's how it's, well, that's how it's
that's
called,
what it's for,
slight blight.
yeah,
Really? Pretty cool.
yeah.
I've kind of not heard of it, but.
Oh, it's, I mean, it's pretty much 50-50 going right down Main Street. Pretty
Yeah,
much.
it is pretty much just.
Well, I think that's been like discussions, not even just this board, but I think other boards have had discussions on how to kind of
There's gotta be some.
help that out.
Yeah, there
Motivate.
does have to, and
People
this
still have
has,
to wanna do it.
okay, we'll stick to business.
So what I hear is there's no question that it needs to be done. The question is, can we afford to do it and how much are we willing to allocate from our total budget to do, if this is something we think.
I think this is a great idea. I worry that until the sidewalk project is paid for and done, that it's not something we.
But if we
Consider
really restrict where it is, we can almost count houses on that road and how much money we wanna do, we can almost know cap, right?
Exactly.
What it would be total if every single person applied, we approved every single person, type of thing.
That's true too.
What is gonna happen downtown where the sidewalk goes right to the house? Where are they gonna, where's the expansion on the sidewalk gonna go? Into the parking area? I mean, into the,
You're talking on the right side.
from York's all the way up to the.
Yeah, so there's conversations right now that are being had with responsive landowners about. The fact that they don't own the sidewalk, and that those steps may have to be removed and set back into the structure.
There's the sidewalk.
I feel like
There's where they
that
all
whole
apply
thing
for
is
the
defeating the. Once you widen that. All the residential homes, people, I mean, already they're emptying out a little. Bit, you don't see that happening with
No.
the,
No,
Somewhat, I mean,
More
the thing is
encroachment.
that you want your main street to be Main Street.
right,
And if you get folks that might live upstairs respectfully, then great, mixed use is wonderful, but if you're just using. Building stock on Main Street for housing. It's not necessarily the perfect scenario.
Yeah, and that was our problem last year was that we had no space to put businesses, so if people
mhm,
move out.
It's a good point.
you say that, but yeah, look what was down there years ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
a lot of them-
Hardware store, right, a grocery store and.
there was all kinds of stuff,
Laundromat, hair
yeah,
salon and.
yeah,
I don't know.
Bakery.
antique shop,
Right,
hardware
go-
store, yeah, yeah, it's all there.
Let's do it.
So, let me ask the first question. Does anybody else feel that this is something we want to pursue? Or what you're suggesting is we wait till the sidewalk is paid for.
He literally said that's gonna take all of our money, so
Right,
that's why I
right.
say, like how you said, we can totally like map it out, but at the same time. We literally just said we're gonna take all of our money.
Well, probably, but we could put legs under this.
Okay.
And that could be, if it's something that people are really encouraged by, it would dovetail well with a sidewalk project.
Get it all
Significantly
face lifted
argue.
up.
Hey, we're making you
And so
look
maybe then you look at a
serious.
different pool of funding for some of that sidewalk and
So it
allow
kind
it
of gives us
to
the
roll out.
defense, yeah.
I feel like you just said, like, if we have money in our coffers, someone's gonna find
People
a
are
way to
gonna
spend
take
it,
it, right,
other than us.
Yeah.
And if we don't, like, I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think the sidewalk project is contingent on us having,
Okay,
It's
200,000.
largely contingent
okay,
upon-
alright.
It's largely contingent upon the TIF having the money in there, so that's the only way the town would fund it. It's a substantial investment.
Oh.
But if you said we want to pair, you don't spend it on anything, this is complements a sidewalk project, right? If you're going to downtown and just improve your sidewalks, and you make granite curbing additions here and there. You know, traffic calming measures that are installed, extending it down with Busula Park. It would make reasonable sense to a lot of folks that say, well, while we're down there doing work, let's improve some of these other buildings, to create the opportunity. So hold back 100,000 in your TIF fund. And maybe you introduce a residential program. That's just my for instance numbers, don't hold me hard and fast, but.
I think that makes a good point where you said if we're having them having to push things back into their home.
you can kind of back up and say like, yeah,
Oh, we have this
sorry,
program
not
that you
sorry,
can-
but you can
Yeah.
also use this funds.
It's not our project, it's a state project.
Yeah, how
And
much,
that's a guide, but,
Yeah,
how much
I-
is the total amount? Do you,
we're looking at a little over 3 million,
and the state's funding, how much?
the vast majority of it,
Uh-huh.
we're responsible for about 550,000.
Pretty good deal.
Yeah, I guess.
It's, one of the biggest parts of that is the lighting.
Yeah.
Really? Well, we, town, this board has decided they want lighting to go uniformly up Main Street, so. They're gonna be relocating utility poles and setting up lamp posts that will run uniformly from Mechanic Street, Perkins Street. And then we set outside the sidewalk, and there was a lot of right of way. Like that, that go with it too. I don't think there's too many takings, but there are a couple of takings where they'll have to pay for small pieces of land, like they did in this intersection here.
So I guess I'd say we can start the conversation that we will, would like. I don't know if I even say 5 year.
I know, I almost feel like if you shorten
3-year.
it, then it kind of puts a fire under
I
people's
think
bottoms.
3-year downtown
Well, we
residential
can hope it
facade
goes.
Yeah,
improvement program. 3-year,
Oh, I see.
3-year?
yeah,
Limited.
yeah, 3-year downtown residential facade improvement program, cause I feel like once we introduce it, like, it's gonna be a flood and then it's over, like 5 years is a long time to.
have that money.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have a question, there was something that the select board was addressing, I read it somewhere, one of your emails, about the planning board, the town planning board. I just wondered what kind of plan it was.
Oh, comprehensive plan. What a plan,
Okay,
planning board oversees development,
yeah, just that,
ordinance development, and then they make proposals back to townspeople to accept or reject. They review floodplain, they review commercial, they review shoreline applications of certain sizes. Some of it goes to code office, depending on the size and the nature of the business.
Okay.
Then there's the comprehensive plan committee.
Yeah.
Which is gonna be a committee that's, we haven't built yet. We're gonna start this fall, it's gonna talk about some of these things that, were you on the committee that did the revitalization plan? I think so.
I think
Yeah,
that
you were living
was.
on the committee. And it's gonna be a lot like that, but it's gonna be a bigger picture.
Uh-huh,
Um,
uh-huh,
gonna talk about not just what you wanna see, but how you wanna see it,
yeah.
your actual driver components behind it.
Yeah,
So, but that'll be in September.
Just a quick note, change the subject, but the things that were gonna be done down in the park. The power things and whatnot for the music, that's done, that was done last fall.
So that's all done and we had additional donated, so we approved for 3. Craig Jewel short circuit electric, put a fourth one in down on the left. We had lined them across the river. He put one in on the left, further down beyond the cabin. And then he also installed an overhead light.
Nice.
At the entrance, he replaced the one that was there. He put that on the house for you.
Cool.
I, before I forget. A number of years ago, we were going to install a canoe and kayak storage for townspeople. We can buy one with tip money.
So
They're
there's,
$1,299 or something like that.
there's an
Yeah.
allocation
Free shipping.
already approved, and I think that kind of got tipped over when we
Did the rental.
did the rental unit.
Yeah.
What happened to my deck? But John was gonna build it, remember?
Well,
John decided
but-
his needs were gonna
but
do it or
then-
something. Right now, you have $2,000 allocated for the canoe kayak storage. And then it was a matter of how would it be managed, are you just gonna let people go down there and lock their stuff up and then it's theirs and we just give it as a
Yeah.
courtesy? Where does it get placed?
and now there's light, it's lit, there's cameras, there's,
Right, but then we
Which
want
there
to become a
wasn't
storage
there
yard for,
Right.
what happens if
5
you
years
leave your canoe or kayak there all winter? Does it become
Well, you-
property of the town?
See, I wouldn't lock it, I guess, I would just leave it there.
Have a
I like to
sign.
Set it there to have laundry.
we're
I think
not
it was so,
responsible.
I think it's like, so like if I wanted to just leave my kayak there, so I didn't have to haul it on my car
All
every
summer.
time.
Right, yeah.
You leave it there all summer, so then it's, you can buy one and you're gonna end up,
Like it would be something.
2 months
for
a month, even.
Yeah, it would be some sort of a storage, just like a storage unit. You would
Sure,
pay
lock
for
it.
it,
Can we
and
put that on
you would
the,
have keys.
Yeah,
can we put that
you
on the
charge
agenda
for it,
to
yeah,
talk about the allocated money for next time? I just
yeah, it's
Like,
good
or
to
we
finish what we're doing.
go back to the
Yeah,
downtown, so, cause this is like a huge thing.
okay.
She should be president.
You're gonna get bored of it.
As long as Grace can come every time.
So I guess, is this something we wanna pursue?
Yeah.
Okay, and, do you think that it will be used? I guess that's my bottom line question. If I were a homeowner, would I mean, we would be, the homeowners, I'm sure, will be approached to say this program exists. But how do you think we'll really take advantage of it?
Well, once you've got, you know, they've come and dug up part of your own lawn to enlarge the sidewalks. And some people, it's gonna take flower beds and bushes and whatnot. I think with the new sidewalk, they will be a little more apt to come and look for facade money for groundwork and.
So someone who might have a business next to, on the main street, or a house on the main street. And they take out some of your lawn, you will apply for money, TIF money to have it redone?
I'm saying,
From a
no,
landscape
I'm not
has to be
saying,
done.
I'm
Some of
not
that's
saying
gotta
as
be,
much
yeah.
the lawn as I am saying. Like, I know Dr. Baker's place, little place, the PFAS place, I know it's gonna take the flower gardens and the crab apple tree. I don't know if she wants to do anything there or not, but then at the next place, there's another tree that's gonna come down, smaller shrubs or whatnot that will come down. That's about it, but I mean, it's going to get people motivated when you got,
They'll be reassessing their,
exactly, they'll be
Front.
reassessing the lot.
yeah, yeah, their curb appeal.
Yeah,
And
Exactly.
will our TIF money approve, of course, it's facade, I guess, it's a, yeah.
Just like Pinio's old house, there's white vinyl fence that goes
Yeah.
right to the
Yeah.
sidewalk, that's gonna need to be
Yeah.
set back. And some of that, some cases, it's not gonna be so easy to do, I mean,
Yeah.
Nothing.
you take a chunk, right?
I don't think people are apt to, once you take out their flower bed. Right now in this time, they're gonna redo it, they're gonna leave it however they redo the landscape when they're down the sidewalk, and that's gonna be it.
I would be willing to put a proposal together for next meeting. So I'll just write something up so
That's a
that
good
it's
idea.
sharp.
That's what I was
I've used
wondering.
much as a
Yep.
format of our current meeting.
But I think the 3-year time frame is, because that's about where we're gonna be before it's all finished, isn't it?
I had started like, I was like 3 years and then like 500 to 10,000, 500 to 5,000, like. Maybe throw some numbers in whatever you make,
Per person, I think.
yeah, per household. I
What were you
guess.
saying? What were you thinking?
I put between 5, I was going by like what we had, like 5 to 5,000 or 5 to 10,000, like I feel like 10,000 is a lot, so. I think Cause I guess if we go to this map, here's my one question. Are we literally saying like? At the bottom of the hill to the intersection where the light is? Or are we saying? How wherever they're expanding the sidewalks?
What is the downtown issue question?
I guess
Right.
for residential, where are we gonna really like, we gotta
Uh-huh.
really narrow this down from this like
You have Main
geographical
Street
location.
address.
Okay,
I'm doing a program like this, I'd say I'd have a Main Street
Mhm.
address.
okay,
Your house is located on Main Street, yeah.
so Waterville Road,
The
would
Main Street
count,
starts right here,
right,
and Main Street ends at Everett's.
okay.
Yeah, well, Everett's technically reassigned to Skowhegan Road for marketing purposes.
They get away with it.
Don't Google Main Street, there is.
Okay.
And what type of, number of dollars are you thinking?
I'm gonna say 500 to 5,000.
500, now is that cost of, or is that,
I think we pay 500, they pay 500.
so 1,000, so 1,000 to,
Yeah, I put 10 or 5, I didn't know, I felt like 10 was a lot, but.
yeah, let me write it down.
Yeah, right.
Let me put it in writing and then we'll see where we go from there. John, what you're smoking?
Nope, just trying to think what you can get done for $10,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, and it's an investment for them too, I mean, they can't just apply for it and let us do all the work. I mean,
Right.
they actually make their own.
I agree, that's why the
Yeah.
5, I was like, I feel like that's not a lot of money, but if they're just gonna do the garden and stuff, I feel like $1,000. But you would go that way when we.
Is there a,
Well, that's what I was thinking, I mean,
Yeah,
like
like
season
siding.
siding and when, yeah.
Right, I put it, are you gonna give a preference to hard improvements?
Yeah.
Like the gardening is nice and the bushes and flowers are nice,
And
but
I think longevity too.
that's not gonna last necessarily.
That's true.
So you want, I think you wanna invest in those hard investments, whether it's siding, roofing, maybe
Yes.
windows. I just, you know, things like windows, if you're gonna get into this thing, you're gonna, and it's allowable. You're gonna wanna see these pretty pictures. You're gonna wanna see, okay, well, I'm gonna replace this sign. Okay, well, I wanna see what that sign looks like rather than I got a sign that's gonna get named.
Yeah,
but this
Okay.
is residential and
I want,
commercial.
right, I wanna replace windows, okay, well, how many busted windows do that? Because if they're not busted. The money could be there.
Are we doing residential and commercial? Cause I was thinking just keeping this as just residential because we already have.
You already told me.
Yeah, so they're already covered, so.
and then
This
what
is
do we
just
just put on
residential.
stipulations, like the whole account? The same 5-year thing, or?
Well, oh, yeah,
If we're doing.
Are all these houses that we know of, or most of them, like? They're not like rental, right? They, yeah,
Oh,
so, yeah,
Which is only,
Well-
one is only 2 units.
I don't really know,
okay,
it's a mix.
Yeah.
that's hard, yeah.
But who cares, like, it
No.
looks terrible,
No, but
like,
I mean, like if. it-
like, I don't care, like.
Right,
Give them the devil, as long as they fix up their house, like.
If
you
they
know,
fix
like-
up and don't require, it's still
5
fixed
PM
up.
after this was approved, he's gonna be handing out flyers.
Yeah, I know,
I think the point of what he's saying is like, for that part, is like, it's improved, so sell the house if you want,
Right,
it's
right.
still gonna be there and it's still
Okay.
gonna look better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that that's what I would say for
Yeah.
that. I definitely get where you're coming from, but if
Yeah.
they sell it, it's still there and it still looks better and the next person doesn't have to apply for the money.
true.
We don't require our commercial people to sign anything. They sign the application,
Right,
but we don't file anything at the registry of deeds against their title. Never have, and quite frankly, it's nothing that I've never felt that the sentiment of this committee or the town was that we would go back to try to recoup that money.
right,
mhm.
cause like you said, yeah, like once that,
Because it looks
they
bad.
can't take it with them.
Yeah.
Right, when they go. They can try.
Let me give that piece of money back.
I'm gonna take the siding.
No, let's just take the copper inside.
Yeah, it's just take the bites,
well,
yeah.
I'll put something together so we can jump off some of the next, and what day in May are we coming?
Well, it's the day after Memorial Day.
No.
That's a Tuesday.
Maybe,
Yeah,
or you could move it,
And then can we, what about,
May 27th.
what about like, it's sad that the concerts in the park are on Tuesdays.
You wanna move?
Mm.
And then we have meeting on, so that'd be 2, I guess, only, right, for the summer, cause it's July and August.
We could just move those two.
We haven't reviewed this meeting time, this fixed
We
meeting
can
time.
move this meeting time.
Right, that's right,
Right.
don't move the
That's no-
concert, it's the concert. You already corrected the thing, I'm not asking.
We could also just move those two too, like
Yeah,
a Tuesday,
right,
so
that's
start
great
date,
for the
those two we
summer,
can,
right.
yeah.
Nobody, honestly, nobody's gonna want to go back to work on the Tuesday after Memorial Day.
Can we make that one maybe June 3rd
Would that be
or
better?
You
after?
wanna move it to May 20th for next month?
To the Tuesday before Memorial?
That's my wedding anniversary.
You have big plans.
No, my husband doesn't have
What if
kids.
we're gonna
Hear that?
throw you a
He'll tell me
party?
that.
Yeah, I think June third,
Yeah,
June third, what's that?
June 3rd.
June third.
June third,
That works.
I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we meet June 3rd next month.
Second.
No, then we adjourn.
Then we adjourn? That sounds good.
No, is there any other business? I guess I should ask that. Any other business?
We didn't have anything to review for applicants.
No, because the select board.
Had to.
We're on
Stop
pause.
doing it. I don't even want them on my desk. I have had 2 applications trying to come to my desk.
Okay, and you couldn't just hold them because we didn't know.
I didn't want to, no, I don't want to get them, if I look at them, then it might.
Fair.
Okay.
But there are 2 applications and the select board, it's public record, met with a future applicant and said that they're not inclined to just flat out deny them because they're gonna start the work before you folks can hear it. By the time this gets approved by the select board, it's gonna be May 7th at best. These people wanna be open in June. And so
So is us meeting not until June 3rd gonna throw that, or we don't care?
at this point in time, the select board said it doesn't matter. They are going to review it with a straight face and not consider that improvements may have already been made as long as the applicant understands that they're at risk of not being reimbursed.
Okay.
Okay, so we can still fund, we will still be able to help with that.
You will still be able to consider it on a straight face, the select board said that they're not gonna just set it aside and say that. Given the unique circumstances, we're doing this.
So is there a possibility that the sidewalk will be done this summer?
No.
I can't wait for that, so I think that's.
All right, thank you, everybody, appreciate it.